Oh, okay, everyone. So they all gave great presentations. Aren't you impressed? Imagine, I get to work with them every day. I'm always getting my mind blown away. It's such an awesome team. It's an awesome organization. The work that we do is so needed, and I think that it's very difficult for people to sometimes understand what the humanities is all about. And in doing this program, we are really hoping that we're able to bring people to an understanding of why these things matter, why cultural awareness and preservation matter, and how it impacts who we are and how we identify as citizens and residents of the city. We want to open up the floor for questions. You can stand up, say what your question is, and if your question is directed to a particular person, please just say their name. Anyone? Yes, and your name as well.
My name is Lois Cooper, and I have been a recipient of the DC Humanities Council, so I want to thank you for that. Being a DC resident myself, long-time DC resident, Washingtonian as they call us, your target audience is new residents. I think that, and I'm sure you guys are working this out in some particular way, that it's important to loop in long-standing residents so that you have some authentic and original conversations that take place in your forums.
Exactly. I can speak a little bit about that. I mean, part of what we are definitely doing in terms of the Humanitini is bringing together panels of people who can speak on these various topics. And most of the time, they are old school Washingtonians who've been here for generations. But the messaging is directed to the newcomers, the people who are just settling in. Because what we're finding is that DC is not as transient as it used to be. Right. People are coming here from all over and making this home. So we want people to understand DC has a unique culture, has a long history, and we want to be able to marry the old with the new in a way that benefits everyone. Jay, from a programming perspective, do you have anything you'd like to add in terms of answering this question?
No, I think that's about right.
Awesome, okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir? And your name?
I'm Julian Josephson, former science writer. Has anybody considered in introducing the District of Columbia to newcomers and people, inviting some from the embassies so they can intermix with people from other capitals?
Yes, we have actually.
Yeah, I'm actually going to work a little bit with cultural tourism, which has some very good inroads to the embassies to make sure that some of these, if not all of them, are advertised properly to embassies. Yes, it's a great question and a good call.
Yes, my background former to coming here is in international development, international relations, so that's definitely something that is on my radar, and as we move forward to the next year and planning our programs, we'll be doing more and more of that type of outreach. Yes.
My name's Leanne Bigelow, and as Joy mentioned, I'm a former board member. And I just wanted to respond to your comment. I think it's very valid, but as part of my testimony as to how the DC Humanities Council, HumanitiesDC, has impacted me, I've lived here for 12 years, and when I was still a newcomer, this was my, the HumanitiesDC was my education about the district. This was the way I learned about the district, what it means to be a Washingtonian, the questions around our particular districthood. And so I think your point is very valid, but I think it's so needed. This dialogue for newcomers, people who've been here for a short amount of time. And I'm very, very glad that this Humanitini service is being offered.
Thank you.
I want to say I agree. I think it's needed. I think it's important to all persons concerned that it be a balanced, because based on your experience, that shapes your perception.
Absolutely.
And perception has a lot to do with the way you view the world. So.
Any other questions or comments?
Will you be giving the same talks at Busboys and Poets tonight?
No, so at Busboys and Poets tonight, we're going to actually be doing the first Humanitini in the series. Jay, would you like to come up and give a little bit of a description about what tonight's program is going to be about?
Panels to discuss the topics that you're, not just for tonight, for this.
That's the subject of lively discussion in-house. What we have done is try to strike a balance in every direction, not only, people who've lived here forever and people who are new to the place, but also how to structure the dialogue so that it doesn't weigh too much in one direction or the other. On one hand, we do want to talk about the history of the district. On the other, we want to link it to people's current experiences. And so the panels that we have begun to assemble will consist, it's usually of a historian on the one hand, and then someone who can comment on the contemporary issues on the other. And then there'll be a third person in the middle who has to sort of referee the two sides. But to answer your question about the first one, the one that's happening tonight, we are spending tonight talking about the first 20 years. So we're going to begin with a video which was done by the University of Maryland, Baltimore County Imaging Resource Center, which actually depicts the construction of the first buildings in DC out of the ground. It's really neat. It's only 6 minutes, but we're going to start with that. And then we have Matthew Gilmore, one of our board members, who is deeply immersed in DC history, who's going to give a 5-minute presentation about how DC was founded. And then we're going to move to 2 other panelists, Mark Sandalo from the University of California, DC Center, and the other is Jose Suairo from the National Association of Hispanic Publications. And those 2 are going to link Matthew's talk to the experience of newcomers to the city. So Mark is from San Francisco, and he obviously brought a West Coast perspective, and he continues to refresh that perspective through his students, because all of the students come to the University of California. They're here in town for internships. And Jose is going to talk about the perspective of Latino migrants to the city, not just his own experience, but that of, what did I do?
Latinos.
Talk about Colombia. So that's the goal. So the title of tonight's presentation is DC's Tapestry of Regional Cultures. And I'll just read this to you for simplicity's sake. Since its founding, Washington, D.C. has reflected the regional cultures brought to the city by waves of new residents from around the country. Join us as we trace these regional cultures and the impact they've had on life in Washington. And I just want to make another point. Marjan, as well as being very modest, she is part of Busboys and Poets, who have agreed to host all of our Humanitinis for the year. So I want to thank you, Marjan.
One thing I also want to make sure that you guys are aware, this is a series, and we want you to embrace it as a collective experience. Each of the different Humanitinis will cover a 20-year period as we lead up to the 225th year. So you're going to be going through the timeline in terms of each topic from month to month. It's going to be the first Thursday of every month from 6:30 to 8:30 at the different Busboys and Poets locations around the city. In your pamphlet, you have the schedule and the topics that are going to be covered. Please make sure you mark your calendars to be there. I am excited. I think that as we continue to move forward from each month, we're going to see more and more people become engaged, more and more sponsors coming on board, and it's going to be a phenomenal experience. So make sure you mark your calendars, tell your friends, tweet about it, Facebook about it, blog about it, whatever you can do to spread the word. It's all about bringing people together. So we want to make sure that we have a nice, full, collective, diverse embodiment of everyone that makes DC the tapestry that it is. Okay? Any more questions or comments? One more?
Yeah, just to comment on Lois's comment. If the press release says that this program is geared toward the newcomers, the people who've been here a long time might think they're not included. I mean, not about even sharing their experiences, but about learning. And a lot of people in DC, the old timers, new timers, don't know DC history. They don't know about the humanities. And it's really important that everybody knows about HumanitiesDC and the kinds of presentations that you give.
Definitely. We'll make sure that we make a note of that and make sure that we're reaching out to everyone. Everyone's aware that all is welcome and all is wanted. Because as I mentioned, it is about bringing the old and the new together and having a good marrying of the cultures, because as the city changes and transitions, it's nice to go from one community to the next and know now I'm in Shaw, now I'm in Eastern Market and have that different feel and that different vibe. So we definitely want to make sure that the cultural preservation is incorporated into all the work that we do. Anyone else? Okay, well, I guess on that note, I will say thank you all for coming. We hope to see you tonight in
Already.